Okay, dear ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next web demonstration on KISSsoft customizing. My name is Ilya Tsikur. I'm senior engineer at KISSsoft, and today I will present you different options how you can customize KISSsoft and make it more user-friendly or more user-specific. So today, first, we're going to cover the database tool. So how can we edit the database, add new materials, add custom cutters. So in KISSsoft, you can include a list of cutters, which you can later on use when selecting the reference profile of your gears or if performing fine sizing operations. Then I am planning to show you how to edit KISSsoft reports. How can we change them? How can we add parameters? How can we generate completely custom special reports, which will be on top of the standard KISSsoft reports, which you know. Then I would like to show you how we can create custom output files, interfacing KISSsoft data with other programs. Then I will show you how to modify and change the result window in KISSsoft. So you can add custom results, remove some parameters which you're not interested in. Then I am going to show you how to apply rules in KISSsoft. So how can we create certain rules? For example, if material quality is too low that was entered by the user, KISSsoft should give out a warning message or an error. Then I'm going to show you how we can actually change the complete user interface. How can we add new entry fields into the user interface, especially if you maybe have something company specific, like for example, each gear has to be tested first. So you can actually add an input field in KISSsoft where you can write something, either numbers or text that, for example, the gear was tested on 13th of March, 2020. And last but not least, we will talk about the COM interface, which allows to create direct communication between KISSsoft and other programs, and as well run KISSsoft in the background. Now, as for the organizational things, you have on one hand here in this presentation a link to a zip file. It's an archive, which actually includes all the examples that I will be using in this presentation. Again, today we will try to work also with KISSsoft, so not just boring PPTs, so now we're going to have a look at some real examples and see how it works in KISSsoft. Where do you find this presentation with the link to the material? Directly in the tool. If you open up your GoToWebinar tool below, you will see there downloads or materials. I don't know, I have it in German. And as well, you can ask questions during the live webinar. We don't have someone who is answering them live, but I will go through the main questions after the webinar. So please feel free also to ask questions. Okay, so let's get started. And the first thing I want to start with is the database. As you can see on this slide, we have materials which we can select, which have already been predefined in the database. And obviously, you can not only change the material data, but you can actually add globally new stuff. And if you wish so, also remove some materials. For example, if you're not using sinter metals or if you're not using plastic gears, then why even show them in the selection window, right? In addition, you have the option to read in SN curves if you're performing measurements, or maybe hardness curves, which can all then be integrated into your calculation. So now I will switch to KISSsoft. And the first thing I want to show you is that if we modify databases, then we need to start KISSsoft with admin rights, especially if you have a local installation. So my KISSsoft is right now installed locally. So I find all the databases under C, Programs, KISSsoft 2020. And there is a folder which is called KDB, which stands for KISSsoft Databases. And if I open up this folder, then you can actually see the database files which we're now going to modify. And obviously, you need admin rights to write in the program files directory. So in case you have a floating installation, probably you can start KISSsoft with writing permission straight. And another thing is, I will show you later, you can actually define initial settings for each user so that all users are using the common database, which you put on a server as an example. Okay? So let us open KISSsoft. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to load example number 1, spur gear. And you can see we have here our materials, and actually all the drop-down lists, everything you see which is attached to a drop-down list in KISSsoft can be edited in the database tool. Another thing I want to show you is if I click here on the material with the plus button, I can select own input and I can actually override these values. Once I do that, for example, once I change here the endurance limits, let's say 450, then this material will be set to own input and it will not be stored permanently. It will only be available in this calculation file, these entries. And this is not what we're interested in. We're interested in actually defining a material globally. Now, you see there are 2 tabs. So one tab is the basic data tab, where we have basic material properties such as Young's modulus, Poisson ratio, density, and so on. And we have specific calculation data for the gears. Now, obviously, a bolt can also have same material as your gears, and for gears, obviously, we need different calculation data for the endurance limits and for lifetime calculation. So that means we will need to work with 2 databases. One database is the basic data database and the calculation data database. Okay, so let's do this. Now I will I will open the database tool, and now KISSsoft asks me if I want to open the database with write permissions. Yes, I do. And here you find all the databases that are basically available within the program. So particularly we are interested in materials, group materials, basic data. This is where we define a new material. And it's up to you now if you click on this plus button to straight away start a new entry in the database. I prefer, just for the sake of, to save some time for this presentation, I'm going to open a material which already has similar properties. So I'm just going to click it. And now I press the plus button. So now I can actually add a new material, but the values that I had for this standard material are already being transferred. So I don't have to type everything. Yeah, so let us call this material for web demonstration customizing. So this is going to be my material name. Now I will not bother to change anything that was left in the fields. I just assume that Young's modulus is more or less the same for steel. And I'm just going to confirm this choice by hitting the OK button. Important is you check that you really have entered the surface hardness, the pore hardness, and the type of heat treatment, because this data we need afterwards to use the ISO tables for the endurance limits. So now I can confirm by hitting the OK button. And now you can see we have in the ID 20,002 a new material, which we have called material web demo customizing. So all the indexes or all the IDs up to 19999 have been reserved for KISSsoft. You can't change them, but everything that you enter manually, user-specific data starts usually with the index 20,000 as ID. So now I can save the database. Now I will open the next database, which I explained before, and we're actually now interested in materials, but gear data. So once I open this database, materials of gears, we can now enter or add a new entry. So we add here a row. And now we have to select the base material. This is important. This is important. It's important that you have set this base material before doing this. And now you can see here down below, I have my material that we have specified. Now, quality level, according to the ISO tables, I have to enter here a steel grade, either based on the ISO standard or AGMA. I will use MQ, which is the normal grade, or let's say good quality steel. If you are using aerospace grade steels, then probably you want to go for this last option here for extreme good quality. Now, I can comment this. This is a project number, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so that I know for which customer, for example, this material is used and so on. So I can add here comments, which we will see later on when we select the material. Now you can see I don't have any data for the endurance limits of root and flank, but as I said before, for steel gears, we have the ISO and AGMA standards. In ISO, it's the part 5, where we have some tables. And the nice thing is that the endurance limits have been measured, and they only depend on the surface hardness, on the heat treatment, and on the quality, which we have defined before. If I don't know what's the surface hardness in Vickers, I can actually convert Vickers from Rockwell hardness. So I can enter here typical values, I don't know, maybe 61, Rockwell hardness, press calculate, then I get my Vickers hardness numbers. I confirm by hitting the OK button, and now press calculate, and there you go. I have now my endurance limits based on the ISO tables in part 5. So we can confirm and save the database. Now, important, once you have created new entries, usually you have to restart KISSsoft. So I'll just go ahead and restart it so that the entries become visible. So now, if I jump again back to my example number 1, now you can see in the drop-down lists, we have specified globally a material which is now available in the database and for everyone else using this KISSsoft installation. Okay, so far so good. Let us continue. Now I would like to show you how can we add custom cutters. So you can add the tool, your tool's number, your internal number of the tool. Then you can add, of course, you can enter the reference profile, so basically the geometry of the cutter. You can specify if it's a protuberance type cutter or not, if it's a topping tool or not. And you can also include your own grinding allowance, for example, based on the module that you have. So module 2, grinding allowance, I don't know, 20 microns, 30 microns, something like that. So you can actually make these things, you can customize these things and add them into KISSsoft. What you can also do is if you're, kind of using just a couple of reference profiles, then you can also deactivate the ones that you just don't want to show, so that the user who uses KISSsoft in your company has only the choice of cutters that are either available or are considered to be standard cutters. And most importantly, you can actually use the functions in fine sizing. So if you do gear sizing and optimization, such a way that KISSsoft will search for solutions and you can evaluate these solutions for which you actually have a cutter, or for which you have an existing cutter. All right, so let us have a look at it. How does it work in KISSsoft? First, let me show you where to find these kind of files. On one hand, I said that we will be using a .dot file to make a list of cutters. And now you can see inside KISSsoft installation, I have a folder which is called .dot. And important for you to know is that please, you should not overwrite original files. So if you overwrite something, the information is lost. So what you should do is find the corresponding example .dot file. Let me just give you an example. We have here a file in KISSsoft, Z000 BP, which is actually a cutter, let's say a template for a cutter list. So I can now, we have the same thing for pinion type cutters, we have some Dean profiles there and so on. So you can use these .dot files as an example so that you don't have to write the whole file with headers manually. So you can just copy this file. So I copy this file. And now for you, we have created a folder in KISSsoft, which is called X. And by the way, That's the only folder. If you uninstall KISSsoft, remove KISSsoft, it's actually not being removed because this folder contains your personal data. And you can see we have here folders for the dot files, for the report files, which we'll have a look at later. So now I put my cutter list into the dot folder, but the problem is here in my root directory C programs, I won't be able actually to write or make any changes in the file. So what I do usually is I first, as an intermediate step, copy the file on my desktop. And now if I double click, I can make my changes. Let's make some changes here. I'll delete a whole bunch of data and I'll just, I'll just add 2 custom cutters. I call them cutter 1, 2, 3, 4. And this will be my cutter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see that the way it works is you have here basically the legend, right? So you start off by typing here the module, then we have the pressure angle, and then you have all the reference profile parameters. And each parameter which has a 0 at the end means it's referred to the cutter. So it's not the reference profile of the gear, it's the reference profile of the cutter. So I will not make any changes here, but please note we have here module 1 and module 1.25. If you wish to link this to grinding allowance, I have prepared also an example for you in the folder that I have provided. So you can actually, by choosing a cutter, KISSsoft automatically chooses the standard grinding allowance. I will not show this now, but I will include at least this cutter list so that you can see how this works practically. So now I can save the file. I've saved the file. And now from my desktop, I'll just copy it into my ext folder, KISSsoft 2020, ext, and then dot. Dot means that that's the place where you will have all the dot files, which you can further use. Okay, so now let us start KISSsoft. I start KISSsoft, and I go back to my database tool. I open it up with write permissions, and now I just have to find the right database, right? So it's not gear reference profile, it's actually, let me find this. Let me find the right database. Actually, I'll label it. So we're looking for hobbing type cutters. In German, it's actually much easier to find this file, but don't worry, we'll find it as well. Selection of hobbing type cutters. So that's the database I'm looking for. We have the same kind of database for pinion type cutters for internal gears. Yeah, so let us open this database. And now I will add here a new entry with the plus button. And I can now label these hops. So these are my hops. And I will now have to attach a dot file. And you can see KISSsoft automatically jumps into this ext folder. That way you make sure that you don't actually delete original files. So I select this file, and if I want, I can actually edit it directly by hitting on this button, but then you have to make sure KISSsoft is running in admin mode, otherwise you can't write, you can't save the file otherwise. So a good opportunity for you soon to contact your IT and ask for full IT, for full administrative permissions. What a great thing, huh? So confirm by hitting the OK button and save. So the database has been saved. Okay, so now we can go to our reference profile tab. And now I have to make sure I didn't add reference profile of gears as a database. I added cutters, right? So I have to select the tool. And now data source, you can see this is the entry that I have made right now. So it's now called my hops. And interestingly, you can see that there are no hobs available. Well, that's good. I know that there is no hob available for module, check out here in basic data, module 6. Remember, we entered cutters, module 1, 1.25. So obviously, KISSsoft shows me if you select this kind of reference profile, you probably are going to need to buy or order a cutter, which Gleason can provide you, obviously. Now, if I remove this checkbox, then I can see all the cutters that are available. These are the entries that we have created. And that way, we have the option to actually have a look, what would be the closest module cutter, and so on. Another nice feature is well, first, let me show you. If I enter here module 1, then obviously, if I go back to my reference profile tab, my hops, I will find this cutter with module 1. You can also have multiple cutters with module 1, and then all cutters with module 1 will appear. Another nice feature is that if you go to the fine sizing tool, that's the tool we use for gear design and optimization, where we can perform a batch calculation, change the module range, change the pressure angle range, and search for optimal solutions in terms of, I don't know, noise, efficiency, weight, manufacturing costs, whatever. And under conditions number 3, you can see that we can actually link our hob lists right here to the whole fine sizing procedure. So for the pinion right now, KISSsoft will only search for solutions to which we have an available hob. So a really nice feature, can save some money. Okay, next topic are the reports. So the standard report files, which you know already in KISSsoft, you will find in the root directory of KISSsoft subfolder RPT. Now, the user-specific reports, your reports, you should save. Sorry, I think there's a backslash missing. Sorry for that. That's a typing mistake. There should be a backslash. So KISSsoft 2020 backslash external data or user-specific data, right? Backslash RPT. Now, it's important that the file name of the report, which you edit, the file names match to the original file name of the report, right? So I will come to this. I'll show you where to find these reports. And important is also that you see how this file naming convention is realized. So the first thing we see here is the module Z012. What is Z012? Well, if you go here under File in the cylindrical gear pair calculation and save as, then you can actually see there's an O missing. This is something historical, so you would need to add a 0. So Z012 would be then the corresponding module, and this is for cylindrical gear pair calculation. That's how you find out which module has which label. Then we have the letter D. Usually the letter at the end stands for a language. Now in this example, it's a German report, but I will show you also for the letter E how we can find English reports. And another thing you have to know is that basically before you start editing reports, you should at least have an idea of the internal variable names used in KISSsoft for your parameters. So Achsabstand, this is a German word for center distance. You can see I have changed this entry. Then it will have 10 integer numbers and 3 floating digits, basically. So you can basically format how the numbers will appear in the report. And this parameter here, ZP brackets O.A, that's the internal variable name for the center distance. Yes, there is an Excel list with all KISSsoft variable names, but I will address this topic later when we talk about the COM interface. So we provide you on one hand an Excel list where you have an overview of all the variable names, but you can also open our standard reports or standard report templates, and you will find there as well the parameter names. So there are different ways to find this kind of information. Right. So let us now go to the KISSsoft installation folder. It's again C programs and KISSsoft 2020, and you will find all KISSsoft report files in the subfolder RPT. As you can imagine, there are a lot of files, really a lot of files. And especially for the gear calculation, there's a special report for scuffing, special report for, I don't know, flank breakage calculation, and so on. So make sure to find the right report file. And if you can't find it, just ask us. We will help you. But I have prepared an example file for you. So I've given you the download link for the files. This is the way it looks like. So you have different topics with all the different examples. We had a look now at manufacturing tools, cutters, and now we will open up chapter number 4. There is a tutorial, tutorial number 92, which explains in English how to modify reports. Or if you watch closely, I guess you should also understand it just by watching at this web demonstration. So what you can see here are 3 report files. First, let's start with this file. Z012 is the cylindrical gear pile calculation. And what I've done here is I've just used the same report that we use for gears. I could delete here stuff. You can see here the variable names. They are sometimes truncated, the format of the parameter name. And what I did, basically, I just typed in hello world, an easy sentence, which we should see then in our report. And you can also see here the original report file name, the report, right? Okay, so let us copy this file. Let us copy this file and place it into our root directory. It's programs, KISSsoft 220, and we don't want to overwrite original files. So I have to put it into the ext folder, subfolder RPT. So let us add it. And now you can also see that the E letter stands for English. So this report has been done particularly for English. So make sure that you change something in the English report and then check the German reports, then nothing will happen, obviously. All right, so I'll load example number 1. I'll hit the calculate button and I will open up the report. And what you can see is the first thing I have written here is hello world. So this is how we modify the reports. Next topic are the special reports. What's the difference? Why did we change the name, reports and special reports? What's the difference? Well, the difference is if you use the same example that I've been using now, then you're actually changing the original report. So you basically have no longer access to original report files. And in some cases, you don't want to have that. So if you want to keep both the original report files and something that is completely customer specific, we have created a special type of reports, which is called special reports. And this special report will not overwrite anything else. It will be added here, and you can use their tables. I have provided you an example. Just make sure that you have specified the module here in the header of the report and the title of the report. The title that you can see here will later on also appear here in this drop-down list that you can see over here. I will not do this. I think this example is very trivial, but sometimes it gets a bit tricky. I wanted to have a table inside the report. KISSsoft reports don't use tables, but in case I wanted to have a table, you basically use these td commands, and just check out the example file that I've provided, where you can basically create such a nice table with gear 1, gear 2, and then add there some customer specific parameters like face width in this particular example. You will find these special reports in the material that I have provided you, reports and results. And we have here an example of a special report, my special report. I can open it with an editor. This is how this report looks like, and this is how you can format some certain tables. And here you will find the actual variable names that I wanted to add, which was the face width. By the way, what does this index mean? Well, as you know, normal people, probably like you and me, we start counting with 1. So 1, 2, 3 apples, right? Well, programmers, they don't count like that. They start with 0. So actually, ZR0 means gear 1 of a gear pair. And consequently, ZR1 means the counter gear of a gear pair, so gear 2. So with these indexes, you can control, is it the face width of gear 1 or is it the face width of gear 2? All right. Next topic, result windows. Yeah, so you can edit result windows, and the right way to do it is you first write down the module where you want to change the results, and then add result, just as a text, .rpt. Where to place it? Easy, KISSsoft 2020 Ext RPT, as we know already from the examples before. Now let us have a look at the example that I have provided you. The result window, you can see the file naming Z012, that's the module name. And what I did basically is, let's say hello world, let's make it not that personal. Hello world. And what I added basically was an active tip diameter, an active root diameter. This is what I'm interested in. And now I can basically take this file. I will take this file and I will now place it into the Ext folder of my KISSsoft installation, which is again right here, programs, KISSsoft 220 Ext RPT. So now I have here a custom result file. And now if I run my KISSsoft calculation, you will see hello world appears, active tip diameter and root diameters are now also displayed. Now, obviously you can also remove the stuff that you see here. It's also possible. We do have a special example for that. So just contact us in case you need more information, because the example that I am using here now adds these results after the standard file. But it's very easy also to modify it completely. Next topic is custom output files. Now, when would we need such custom output files? I remember I had to do some comparison calculations in Excel. So you can imagine we program a new standard, a new method, and there are some examples. So sometimes what you want to do is basically compare what KISSsoft does with your Excel sheet where you have done your preliminary manual calculations. So the idea is you can create a file which you can name user module first, then user.rpt. That's a user output file. You will place it into the Ext folder of KISSsoft RPT, and you will find the result file or the output file in your temp directory of Windows. Let me give you a small example of what I'm talking about. So let us make a small example. So I will now open the user file. You can see right here, what do we have here? Well, it's a very simple dot file, which will write out first text, number of teeth, semicolon, semicolon, then a floating number of the number of teeth of gear 1 and the number of teeth of gear 2, and then the official variable names Z1, Z2, and the same thing I have done for the normal module. Why did I add these brackets right here? Well, because it's easier than to read this type of data in Excel in a nice format. So let us copy this file. Let us copy this file in our Ext RPT folder. Again, same things. I think I've lost it. So KISSsoft 220 Ext RPT. So let us place this custom output file Z012 user. Now you can actually run a calculation. So I will now in KISSsoft press calculate, make sure not to close it, because usually if you close KISSsoft, then the temporary files usually are deleted. Not always, but after a certain time they are deleted. So as long as KISSsoft stays open, the files are not deleted. And now what I need to do is I just basically need to find my temp folder. An easy way to do it is if you open your browser. If you open up your browser, you can type here percentage 2 times and then enter temp, and Windows should find your corresponding temp folder. And I will now scroll down and you can see there is a file that was created at 15:33 Swiss time, which is exactly what my clock is showing. And I can now copy this file on my desktop, just to make sure I don't have to look for it again in the temp folder. How does it look like? It looks exactly the same. Just the difference is, instead of having here now the internal variable name for the number of teeth, actually I should have made them integer. It doesn't make sense, to have 6 floating digits after the comma. I didn't do that, sorry for that. But you have now the numbers. You have now the numbers that you had in your KISSsoft interface, right? And now I can basically open my Excel. I have a German version of it, sorry for that, you won't understand. But yeah, we have here a place called data, and we can now read in a text file. And I will now read in the file that I just saved on my desktop, and it's called, I think it was this one. And just make sure that I, that's actually the wrong file. I've used it in a different example, but you see the idea, right? You see the idea. The example I was showing for German-speaking customers today morning was a bit bigger, and here you basically see the output. So this allows you to actually interface KISSsoft really easily just by using this user-defined output files. Really easy stuff to do. It might save you some time when you're doing some comparison calculations or want to compare KISSsoft results with, I don't know, some other calculations that you have been using. All right. Next topic are the rules. Now, sorry that the message here is in German, but don't worry, we'll see it on a very easy example. What are rules all about? So first of all, the file name should be the module. So Z012 for cylindrical gear pair, module, sorry, an E is missing here, .rls, which stands for rules. And the rules are no longer placed into the X folder, but into KISSsoft 2020 template folder. So what is a rule? First of all, in a rule, we want to define, should the rule be executed before the calculation or after the calculation has been performed? So this is why you have here pre-calc and post-calc in the editor. And then there is an assert function, which basically tells me if this equation here is not true. So if the quality of gear 1 of a gear pair, so the quality of the pinion has a number bigger than 7, so 8, 9, and 10, which means worse quality, I want KISSsoft to give me a message. It's in German, Achtung, Mindestqualität Rad 1 unterschritten, which means careful, the minimum required quality has not been achieved, or is not permitted in our company, whatever. So let us do this example. Again, I go back now to my folder where I have all my material. This is my KISSsoft folder. Let's find it real quick. Rules. It's chapter 5 rules. And again, here you will have a small tutorial. Tutorial number 93, how you can define different types of rules. Now, let us copy this rule. You see, it's just a module name .rls. That's the type of the file. Obviously, sorry, excuse me. Obviously, this rule will only be executed for cylindrical gear calculations, right? Now, where's my KISSsoft installation? There we go. KISSsoft 2020. And now, as I said, we place it into the subfolder called template. And now I paste it. And now we have a rule here. Now we have here a rule. Now, some people might ask, so can you create several rules for one module? The answer is no. All the rules that you want to apply must be contained in that Z012 file. So you can't say for this calculation use these rules. You can just specify it once for a calculation module, like for example bevel gears or cylindrical gears and so on. So let's test if this thing works. Now, I said that if the quality of my pinion is bigger, the quality number is bigger than 8, then I should get a message. So now I've entered here quality 8. Let's press calculate. And now you get a customer specific warning, which tells me, warning, the minimum gear quality of gear 1 is too low. We don't use such qualities. You can also do it too high. For example, if you don't grind gears or whatever. And you will also see what caused the message to appear. So the message is caused by a rule that is located under C programs. Well, this is interesting. It actually changed, huh? Under C programmer. Yeah, KISSsoft 2020 template Z012. That's the file that causes this message. So this is how you define rules. Now, how can we actually change the whole interface? Now, in this particular example, you can see that this is the standard KISSsoft interface. And you can see here, you can't read it out completely because I had some resolution problems on my monitor. It's material testing. So a person maybe is responsible in your company to test these gears or to test the materials. So he should maybe enter here that gears have been successfully tested. They have achieved, I don't know, pitch error quality 5 or whatever. You can write text here and this will appear in the KISSsoft report. So the only rule is basically here that you have to write in the KUI file, that's the format. KUI stands for KISSsoft user interface. Again, the module, and here's the description, and .kui. Okay, so let us have a look what I have created for you today. What I have created is, yeah, that's not the folder I'm looking for. Right, so what I have created for you is, too fast with my mouse, excuse me for that. Dynamic user interface, there is an example. Now you can see where to place it. It must go afterwards into the X folder. And now, interestingly, I have here both KUI and RPT file. Why? Well, first of all, I want to add a new entry inside KISSsoft into the interface. This entry will have an internal variable name. And obviously, I want this variable name, or let's say I want this variable, including the text that was input, that was entered into KISSsoft. I want it to appear in the report. So I have to change the interface, and I have to change the report files, right? So this is a rather complex example, okay? So I open up my KUI file. Let's have a look how it looks like. You can see the name here. It's Z012 basic data. Well, basic data tab you already know in KISSsoft. This is this tab, and we can actually change it. Okay. There are many different functions. You can make parameters like quality, for example, grayed out. So you can't actually change quality. And it's really open-ended thing. You can do a lot of cool things, but I don't want to encourage everybody to change the user interface because you have to be aware that it might cause problems with technical support. You have created some customer-specific variables. Our technical support is not even aware that they exist. And then you ask something about them and our support just doesn't know. So I would not expect everybody to change the interface, but I'm just going to show you how to do it in case you really need it. So what you can see here is this is the basically the text in German, material and lubrication. And I have basically created here under material and lubrication a new variable of type string, and its label is, this is what KISSsoft is going to show in the interface, material testing, and the internal parameter name I have defined here. So the new variable name for this parameter is then quality test. Okay, so let us put this file now into our KUI folder. So I now go back to my KISSsoft. I go back to my KISSsoft, C programs, KISSsoft 2020, Ext, and KUI folder. This is where I place my custom user interface files. Okay. And what I also want to do is I want to add my report. And the special report basically contains just this field. It's going to be placed under additional data in our standard report. So there is a section called additional data, and you can see here quality test. It's a string, and here's the variable name, the internal variable name for this. All right. So let us copy this file, And now careful, this file, it's an RPT file. This file does not go into CUI, right? It goes to the KISSsoft ext folder, subfolder RPT, where all the user-specific reports are located in. All right, so let's do this. And now, if I load my cylindrical gear pair example again, you will see I have to probably close KISSsoft and open it again. Sorry for that. Okay, so let us load our example number 1, see if it works. Looking good. So now you can see here a new entry, material and lubrication. Under the topic material and lubrication, if I put my mouse on top of it, below here in this corner, you can see the full text, material testing, and I can write here now, gears were successfully tested on the 6th of April 2021 by Ilya Tsiko. Okay. Now I can run the calculation, open my English report. And as I said, as I mentioned earlier, we have this is our standard report. Okay, it still has my, actually it's now interesting. Will it work if I am using, my custom report and I add another entry? Now we will see if it's going to work. Maybe not. We will see. Okay, so additional data did work. So you see, additional data, chapter number 8, quality test. It's a string, gears were successfully tested. So now you have a completely custom user interface with custom entries, and it is also depicted in your report. So advanced, but I would say pretty cool feature. So it just is basically now limited by your creativity. So people who are very creative can also create very creative interfaces. Okay, now 2 final topics, initial settings. This is something really simple. So in each KISSsoft installation, we have an initial settings file, which is called kiss.ini, okay? And it's located in the root directory KISSsoft 2020. So let us have a look at this ini file, okay? So I will now go to my C, Programs, KISSsoft 2020. There you go. You see there is an ini file, which is basically, which is coming along with the KISSsoft installation. So if I, sorry, if I open it up, what you can see is here we define all the paths. So for example, the databases are located in the installation directory of KISSsoft, subfolder KDB, which I already showed you in the beginning. So if you want that all your clients, everybody is using the same database, one database, which is located somewhere on the server, what you have to do is you have to specify here the path where the database will be located. Then obviously copy this KDB folder to this path on your server. And this is important, provide each client the same ini file. Okay? So, and then it doesn't matter whether your client is using a local installation, floating installation, KISSsoft will always search for the database on the server. Then there's another interesting feature which is called logging. Logging allows you to manage licenses. So basically, if I set here logging 1, I think there are 1 or 2. 2 is even basically giving you information which user was using which modules. Okay, this works only for a floating license, of course. Then you say, for example, that if a person has KISSsoft open longer than 120 minutes, which is 2 hours, then maybe, as you know, with KISSsoft, you don't actually calculate that much, right? You don't sit for 2 hours and do KISSsoft. So maybe the user just forgot to close KISSsoft and he's occupying the license. So here you can define things like when should the license be given free again. And you can write out a license log file for the IT maybe to search who is using KISSsoft more frequently and so on. So you can actually perform quite crazy statistics just by using these log files in case you are sorry, an advanced user. All right, so now I come to the final and finishing topic, which is the topic COM interface. So the COM interface allows you to run KISSsoft either in background or simultaneously with different programs like Microsoft Office products. I will show you an example based on Visual Basic, or Java if you want to create maybe a mobile tool for your manufacturing department where people can just open an app, a Java app on their phone, which uses KISSsoft calculations in the background. For example, I don't know, to output the tooth thickness tolerances or base tangent length measurements for tooth thickness allowance while you're walking around the manufacturing, right? And this will use really KISSsoft calculations in the background. It also works for PHP, MATLAB, C++, Python, just name it. Any tool that is compliant with the COM interface, which has a COM interface, basically. How does this work? Well, I have provided you an example file. And you will find it in the chapter 8, chapter 7, customizing COM interface. So if I double click here, there is a workshop folder which has a tutorial how I program this step by step. And it has a file which is already done. So how does this work? You can see I have here an Excel, just an Excel sheet where I can change the parameters. I'll change the normal module. All these orange fields are input is basically input. And now I'll just run calculate, and I'm waiting for results from KISSsoft for center distance and tooth form diameter. So I run now the calculation, and Excel will show me the tooth form, which comes from KISSsoft. It's a temp file, which you can store. You'll get the center distance, and you get the tooth form diameter. So a really, really easy tool for somebody maybe who just needs some specific results in the manufacturing, but doesn't need to, have a full KISSsoft training. So like an easy interface, simple to use interface, which still uses KISSsoft calculations in the background. So how does this look like? How does the whole code look like? For that, I open my macros. That's the advanced tools in Excel for programming, and it will open up Visual Basic. So once you have registered the COM server, it's all described in the manual and in the tutorial that I've provided you. You'll actually have the COM library available for you within Visual Basic. That means if you write any, if you basically write, let me do that. Let me just show you. I will now write here in Visual Basic call KISSsoft, that's the library of KISSsoft, dot, and it will now show all the KISSsoft functions that are available, like get variable name or maybe a function, contact analysis. So it will show you now the full KISSsoft library if you want to show the interface, for example, KISSsoft interface or not, and so on. So that way you have basically connected our commands with Visual Basic commands, that this is what COM interface is all about. Now you can see what I do. Basically, I call a KISSsoft function, which loads the module cylindrical gear pair. False stands for don't show the interface. I don't want to see the interface. I want things to run in the background. If I would have here true, then before the macro is finished, it will actually open KISSsoft, and you can check if all the parameters have been transferred correctly. I especially use the KISSsoft interface while creating the macro, so that I have control and I can see whether the parameters are really transferred. And then what I do is I set up a new variable, which is called mn as a double. It's a floating number. And then I say this double with the name mn is equal to the value in my Excel worksheet, row 4, column 4. Right? And once I have the value for mn, then I just assign it. And I say call KISSsoft set variable function, and I assign, this is the internal variable name for the module, and I assign this value. So I also need to convert this a bit, but you can analyze these functions. They're all documented here, unfortunately in German. If you have some questions specifically about this macro, you can also write me directly. I'll be happy to help. Okay. And and maybe the last question, where do we find these variable names? Well, we have a list, and I have provided you this list. if you look at your material inside chapter 7, customizing COM interface, there is an Excel file which contains a variable list, but I also presented a very easy, well, this list is huge, it's really huge. So I prefer to use a different tactic to find out what are the corresponding variable names, but I will not give out this surprise because I recommend you to read the workshop, and there is another method described how you can really easily come to the corresponding parameter names. And yeah, so this is actually it. I am quite sure you didn't know all of the features, probably some of the features you knew, I suppose, how to edit the database and so on. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. And what we will do now is I will just have a look which questions came in and try to answer maybe some of them live. Just give me a moment to read through the questions. Is there a way to change the output to show a comma every third number? For example, 175,000 instead of 175,000. Yeah, well, I guess you can do it. I can't answer this right now. How would I do it? But it's for sure either in the KISS-ini file or in the report files, which you make customer specific. Okay. Is it possible to do the same for KISSes regarding the COM interface? Actually, no. The problem is, KISSsoft is programmed on C++ basis, and KISSsys is using a different library. So you can't directly control the variables through the COM interface in KISSes. Unfortunately, this is not possible. But as you know, we are working on KISS Design, and KISS Design will hopefully appear soon as a commercial product, follower of KISSes, and there we assume it will be possible. Okay. Yeah, there was a question, is there a video going to be available? Yes, there will be a video of this presentation available on our homepage. And I also see some comments regarding that I tend to be a bit too fast when I present things. Well, this was exactly my question. There are so many things about customizing to show, so I could do it rather really very slow. I can speak slowly. This is not the problem, but that way I wouldn't be able to give you a full picture of what is going on and what is possible. So the idea is, of course, that you really rely on the presentation and on the files that I have provided you. And for those who felt maybe a bit annoyed that the tempo was, I admit, the tempo was high, then please accept my apologies. And since there are no more questions left, I would say a huge thank you for those who were in this web demo. Again, I will keep this tool open so everybody can download the presentation file. It's directly available in GoToWebinar on the right side. And the files that I've used for the examples, the link for the download file is inside the presentation. So it's actually here. The problem is I can't upload here, a bunch of folders. So I had to make a custom link where you can download the full archive. Okay, thank you very much. And with these words, I would like to wish you a nice day and hope to hear you soon. Goodbye.